Hello everyone. Some sad story written by Bharat, aka myself. Dear PDF lovers, find the link in the description and have fun. Chapter 8. Cut the Act. Name? Vance. That's the name of a guy who was always drunk as a skunk? No chance. A nauseating present with glittering wrapping. Where are you from? Everton. What do you do? I'm not an engineer or scientist or anything like that. I'm in architecture. Architecture? I lay bricks. Nothing fancy. For a guy being tipsy in the morning, you know to weave words. What's your beef with Gary? What were you doing at his house yesterday? He is my sister's husband. I hit him up for cash. Cash? Why should he give you any? When Sis was alive, she gave something whenever I went to her. She died, and now my only option is Gary. You stinker! Aren't you ashamed of begging for money from your brother-in-law after your sister's passing? There's a young woman in that house, for God's sake. She's a teacher too, don't you know? Ashamed? Why? I got no money, so the rule is to ask whoever got money. If you invest in gambling, horse racing, and the local bar, how do you hope to have anything? Nonsense. How did your sister die? Rhonda died of cancer. Poor her. It was partly my fault, if I think about it. What did you do? Rhonda was a smoke addict. Gary tried to put a stopper on the habit, and it was me she would call, asking to bring some cigarettes. And you did? She paid in full. So why not? Great start to my Thursday. In a nutshell, you're a total scum stinker. Are you ashamed of that? Nah, never mind. What did you threaten Gary yesterday? I don't remember much about what happened. I asked for money and he refused. I could have said a word or two from being drunk. Whatever. You can go. Yes, sir. Write your phone number in that register and then leave. Should come if you're called. After penning down something resembling the first scribbles of a new pen, he left the place in a wobbly condition without falling down. If getting drunk at 8 in the morning was an achievement, walking out in a tipsy yet balanced state was a huge leap for mankind. Looking at Vance's confession with one eyebrow raised and the other lowered, Deputy Chief Maddox looked into his words through the unbiased eyes of suspicion and confirmation while rewinding the exchange. The name was enough to inject uneasiness among troublesome communities. The face reminded them of a cold, cozy grave, and his speech was the cheapest and most effective heartstopper. The list of detainments and deaths of abhorrent criminals attributed to him extended from the earth to the moon. His mere arrival would resolve cases, sometimes within minutes. His appearance was a familiar sight to many because of his eyebrows. One was raised upwards and the other pointed down in an opposite tilt, striking fear into innocent and guilty hearts alike. Whether the feature was natural or a manual novelty had not become a topic of debate, but his designation, the 3 bright stars on his insignia, and the encounters behind his fame were as household as a salt shaker. Consequently, he became a deputy chief at the age of 28, and going just as strong at 32. Detective Kevin was supposed to initiate interrogation and handle the proceedings, but after reading the primary details of the case file and sensing seriousness, Maddox chose to get involved personally and took up the duties. Sir, Max has come for the interrogation and is waiting outside, said the officer. Good. Ask him to come in, replied Deputy Chief Maddox. Max was dressed as though he was prepped to attend a formal job interview. A buttoned full-sleeve shirt, dark pants, polished shoes, a bright red tie, a highly stylish watch on his right hand, and hair well oiled and combed made him look like a professional or a kindergartner ready for his first day. Mr. Max, please have a seat. Thank you, sir. Good morning. Morning, good morning. Dress for an interview? You have to go elsewhere after this? Haha, not at all. This is how I usually dress for most meetings. I've gotten permission from work till afternoon to come over here. I like your dressing sense. The one that separates misfits from others is the outfit. Where do you work? Sunfire Software Systems. Nice. How do you know Paige? We were college mates for 3 years. Do you meet her often? To be fair, I like Paige. I have a crush on her, so I try as often as possible to pay her a visit. My home's only at Everton Market anyway, just 15 minutes by walk or 5 if I run, which I do frequently. The 2 of you are lovers? Oh, no, she doesn't like me at all, because she's in love with another. One side of traffic. Who's that other? His name is Steve. Steve. Know anything about him? He too was her college mate. They're in love with each other wholeheartedly. At least that's what she tells me whenever I speak about my crush on her. I sense she's not lying. College crush garbage. Let's cut to the chase. I heard you met Paige on the road yesterday. Why? I was going to her house, but fortunately found her on the way. Purpose of visit? Like I said, sir, to see her and talk. I've had a crush on her for 3 years. How can I not see her? Right. Really spectacular love. But then, why did you threaten her? Me? Threaten? I didn't, sir. Oh, really, Sonny? Didn't you tell her that she was in danger? Was that a threat or a baby pat? That I did say, but not to threaten. Then why did you say so, Sonny? I tried to tell her that the Steve she's in love with isn't exactly a nice person, so I warned her that she wasn't safe in his hands. Why do you reckon he ain't nice? Once, during our college annual party, Steve tried to get my little sister drunk. If I hadn't got there in time, I don't know what would have transpired. I complained to the college authorities, but nothing became of that complaint because my sister herself didn't want her name going public all over the campus. I shared the incident to drop a warning. I promise I didn't threaten her. Mr. Max, you've shared your version of the story. Shall I share mine now? The satirical and scary voice of Maddox shook Max's heart, causing it to dance like the branch of a pine tree. Even the most guiltless among people would lose their sanity and plead guilty when ripples of his voice's echo hit their hearing. Maddox got up and circled the chair that Max was seated on and then took a seat on the table. His stare met his. Not knowing anything, not understanding anything, he gobbled up his fear and preferred to stay silent and hear what he had to say. Yesterday, right after you talked to her and left, a gang of 4 blocked her path. Why? I don't know, sir, he hesitantly answered. The gang of 4 chased her all the way to her house. Can you tell me why? I know it happened, but I don't know why. She escaped and somehow reached her home, but found her father dead. How did that happen? How do I know, sir? Sonny, may I say how? Max's shirt was soaking wet. He was scratching his palms in fear of what the deputy chief was about to say. You like Paige, but Paige doesn't like you. She's in love with Steve. You hate Steve since you personally find him abhorrent after his trying to take advantage of your little sister, but the issue never took off because your sister herself bailed him out of danger. What figment of fiction have you woven? This is fitting material for Instagram reels and fake Reddit posts. I'm telling the truth. Excuse me? Did you just interject and object what I said? Listen, that's all you should. The feeling of wanting to keel over and die ran its fingers through his well-kept hair, and he almost obliged by falling off the chair as a consequence of Deputy Chief Maddox's voice box firing in all cylinders. Though he pulled himself together and pulled himself up off the floor, he couldn't pull the guts to put himself down on the chair before his ignited stare. The rage of your love not loving you back. No surprise you chose to do something about it. About her. You can't live with her if you kill her off. That will be game over. You aren't the insane sort to expect to spend your life with her in heaven. Therefore, 4 goons were arranged by you to give her an irreparable loss. You even intervened and did some chit-chat till they arrived, and it was by your orders that they chased her. Sir, this is a lie. This is outrageous. I didn't do a thing. Shut the hell up. This is barely the tip of the iceberg. While Paige was busy getting away from the goons, you entered the house and murdered her father. Sir, I swear on my heart I didn't kill him. This is an unforgivable lie. I only talked to her and then went in the direction of her house, right? I ran to the street food vendor beyond her house, but he wasn't there. I then rushed to the bus stop to take a Xerox. Hey! Lying is an art, and I respect the art form, but you suck at it. Can't kill but can't lie? The one who killed Paige's father, Gary, is you, but that won't suffice, will it? A boy scratches wards, a brute goes for the heart. Is that why you went to Willowbury and killed Steve also? Max was shaken by the blow which swayed him to the wall behind, where he leaned in a state of shock. Of all the things that Maddox said, Steve's death was the most appalling. I killed Steve? Steve is dead too? Sir, when did that happen? Blistering bombshells. Never thought I'd see a kitty that couldn't lick its own paws. Didn't you see the paper? Your act is national news now. Gary and Steve are both dead. How did you kill them on the same day? I solemnly swear in the name of the Holy Cross. I didn't even know Steve was dead. Came to know just now from your words. I did not kill Gary. I did not kill Steve. Whatever is happening frightens me. Are you frightened? Poor you. Nothing a cozy hug and a glass of warm milk can't cure. Hey! Hiring goons and stalling out time by conversing with Paige till they came to the spot and then having them chase her while you killed her father after killing her boyfriend too on the same day to gift the pain of solitude so she'd start liking you was your plan. Sir, why do you put an unfair blame on me? Why do I have to hire some goons to chase Paige in order to kill her father? It makes no sense. I told you, that was done to keep Paige busy when you murdered Gary. She was on her way towards the market, which is where I live. I know very well it would have taken her 20 minutes overall. If anyone wanted to kill her dad, they could have done it immediately after she left the house. She actually came home much sooner because of that chase. What's the point with the goons and the chase? That means the chase wasn't meant to drag out time, but to kill Paige too. That's what the ruffians were for. You wanted her dead. It was your wish that none should attain the woman you couldn't. Case closed. I don't know how many times and in what ways I should promise. She's an angel I love from the bottom of my heart. I cannot even kill the thought of her face. How could I ever kill her? Sir, I say nothing but the truth when I say I didn't kill her father, her boyfriend, her anyone. Maddox wasn't moved by the cries and communication of Max, who was still standing and shivering against the wall. Hopping off the table and circling the room, Maddox took his seat again and took a pen to highlight a certain thing written in his diary. Mr. Max, you do swear that you didn't kill, but the knives that stabbed Gary and Steve contain your fingerprints without a doubt. I'm too confused to think or even say a word. How can the knives have my fingerprints? I haven't been to Willowbury in my lifetime. Somebody who hates me is trying to frame me, but I don't know who or why, answered Max with swiftness and verbal agility comparable to a cat's reflexes without showing any trace of hesitation, his fear-filled eyes retaining it straight. Deputy Chief Maddox said, Mr. Max, you didn't kill them. I'm aware. You can go. Sir? He asked in confusion. Gary and Steve died not by a knife stab. They died not on the same day either. I like to make out your countenance to see if it twitched in surprise or feared in dismay. Your fear and fear alone stood out. That sucks because you aren't the killer and I have to find who. Thanks for your time. Like an actor reading a dialogue without a clue on what reaction to portray, Max heard the deputy chief's words and didn't know if he should smile or fear or lament, and left the police department with the conundrum of thoughts, walking across Paige, who was seated on a bench. An officer knocked the door and informed Maddox that Paige was waiting outside. Yes, please, he said, spinning his pen around his fingers like a high school kid. The time was 8:30. Paige, who had been seated on a bench since 8, was escorted into a hall where 5 cops in uniform were busy answering calls and rummaging through files, and then took a left where she noticed "Interrogation Room" written in bold letters on a door. Following a nod from the officer next to her, she opened the door. Excuse me? Miss Paige! Please come in. Have a seat. It couldn't be asserted that Paige wasn't nervous. She had never visited or even dreamt of visiting the police department, let alone the interrogation room, which was the hot seat of heated discussions. The teacher who taught that nothing but guilt should be feared lost her stability when summoned to that room. The chair which played host to some of the biggest and baddest criminals of the town welcomed her, and she sat down, praying to God. Good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Maddox. He offered a handshake. Expecting Detective Kevin but facing someone altogether different, she suspiciously shook his hand and stared at the table, wondering what else was in store following a Grey Wednesday. Maddox began the third interrogation of the day, Max and Vance being the first two. Had a good night's sleep? I hope there wasn't any intrusion at your friend's place. Security was tight at both houses last night. There were no problems last night. Thank you, sir. I heard everything from Detective Kevin and read the case file myself. First and foremost, your father's reports have come in. Shall we? Yes, sir. We have identified the cause of death. There were no stab wounds, no traumatic injuries in his head, no traces of poison in the system. That rules out food poisoning. Mr. Gary was strangled to... Paige's brain filled out the blanks before he could finish speaking and started sobbing in drenching drops that burnt her skin and violated the meaning of wetness. With 24 hours yet to pass since her father's death, the prolonged persistence of its sorrowful impact was trivial. She wiped her face with a handkerchief from her handbag and got herself ready to answer his questions. Please control yourself. Here, have a glass of water. He pushed the stainless steel bottle on the table in her direction. Paige wasn't interested. She wasn't interested to appear disinterested either. After glancing at his face and saying a commonplace thanks, She didn't even mind the bottle and had her sight fixed on the table once again. Maddox was watching everything with the focus of an agitated viper. As I said, your father has been strangled to death. Unfortunately, no such fingerprints squeezing his neck were found in the examination. In fact, the crime squad report says the murder was not done with fingers. That means? Someone choked him out with a towel. But how do we proceed without the aid of fingerprints? I interrogated your college mate Max and your uncle Vance before this. What did they say, sir? We have in our hands two incidents. The first is those four goons chasing you with knives in their hands. The second is the murder of your father who was strangled in his own home. The same person could have been responsible for both, or two different individuals made them happen with unrelated reasons behind. The latter implies too many findings to unearth. What have we found, sir? It wasn't Vance, for sure. He wasn't the killer, nor did he organize the goon party. How are you so sure? He's a drunkard with dangerous debts in all directions. Why do you think his hair puts porcupines to shame? He can't gather the cash to get a haircut, much less organize a party of henchmen. Moreover, your father was one of the few who pitied him and tossed a bone now and then. Vance couldn't risk blowing up his only ATM. But he threatened Dad yesterday. A drunkard's threat and tasteless bread are one and the same. They're of no use. Vance, luckily or unluckily, isn't the murderer we're after. I don't have a good opinion on that person, but I believe you, sir. Who is it then if it isn't him? Max. He has a reason to have you chased by rogues. Typical, but can't be denied. What reason? He has a crush on you, whereas you apparently don't, so he could have paid some acquaintances to set up a harmless chase with fake props and weapons and then planned to enter the scene near the end to rescue you in hopes of kindling your emotions. But he didn't come at all. Nobody did! Paige shouted emotionally. Yes, hence it wasn't Max who commanded the party of four. There is no history of conflicts between him and your father. Boys kill the girls they like, not the parents of the girls who don't like them back. I have another reason. Sir? Vance and Max came by your house yesterday evening. They casually and continuously walked closer and didn't run away despite seeing cops all over the place and around you. A treacherous dog has no place in the crime scene. These dogs can barely bark, let alone butcher. Vance and Max are not the killers. Paige was impressed by the deputy chief's thought process. She came around to dissolve the dilemma of whether the killer was Vance or Max, but he surprised her with the contention that it was neither. A pursuit of truth that disagrees with the possibilities finds itself allying with a lie. Choosing white or black from a pack of cards is a childish task. But what if one is asked to choose either white or black when the cards in the deck are all red? Picking a path is pretty easy if there is one or more. But what if the road to the left is blocked, the one to the right is guarded, there is no shovel to dig down, and there are no wings to fly above? A single horn means a rhino. Double horns can imply goats, buffaloes, and deer, but what if the creature is neither horned nor an animal? Then the being in question is a human. But humans don't kill, do they? If they aren't the culprits, wish there was someone who saw what happened. Rightly said. What we need is a witness, an eyewitness. There definitely was someone qualified to be the perfect eyewitness to this incident. An eyewitness in that area? Who? Confusion and doubts flourished over her face. When the unexpected happens, even if it's pleasant, the shock that accompanies is common. There's a street food vendor in your area to the west of your house. Are you aware? Yes, sir, yes. I see it every day as I pass it on the way home from the bus stop. That exact person. He usually sells till 6 in the evening, but to our despair, he packed up by 5 yesterday and left. Had he been there, he would have noticed every odd thing and resided in this very room and clarified your worries, my doubts, and literally ended the case. However, thinking about what he would have noticed gave me an opening which has indeed ended the whole case. Sir? Really? 2 important facts have surfaced, and they pretty much solved the case. Would you like some water, ma'am? Maybe it was a generic fear of interrogation, or the expected uneasiness of being in the police department building, or the uncertainty in determining who the killer was. She was soaked in sweat. The same woman who ignored the bottle earlier emptied half of it in a single chug. Thank you, sir. The 2 pieces of information? First of all, I've inferred that the vendor would have seen nothing even if he hadn't left early, because nobody entered your house. But how is that possible? Why do you ask? My dad's killer should have gone inside. Should have, but the evidence in hand tells a story too far from that. I don't understand, sir. She scratched her cheeks with sweat drizzling like rain down her face. She certainly wasn't feeling comfortable about whatever the deputy chief in the room bombarded her senses with. There are only two entrances to your house, one in the front and another in the back. The back one has a wooden door followed by a metal gate of the same size, correct? Of course, sir. Crime Squad's inspection revealed that the wooden door had not a single scratch from yesterday. The metal one had its bars whole with no bends and even the lock was intact. Therefore, the killer didn't gain entry through the rear entrance. Then it must have been the front. Isn't that the logical conclusion? She asked doubtfully without assertion. The light of questions leads one to knowledge. A diet of sorrow and silence add fuel to the fire of ignorance. The front? That side has its own hurdles. What is that, sir? In your narration of the incident to Detective Kevin, you stated that at the end of the chase as you made it home, the door was locked. Yes, it was. Nobody gained entrance through the front nor the back. The undisturbed locks and locked doors are the evidence to this fact. The street food vendor would have been a valuable witness with nothing to witness because there was no forced entry. Sir, maybe the killer murdered my father and then locked the door on their way out. Lovely. The killer could have strangled your father and then carefully closed and restored the lock during their exit. Why not go a little further? The killer could have called for house service to mow your lawn and prune the plants before leaving. What's stopping a lock-picking cold killer who restores the locks that he picks from doing a little housework on the job? We don't even turn off the lights when we leave our own room, but a neck-squeezing nutcase had enough etiquette to put the door and locks back in order? It's absurd to think so. From this, we learn a major matter of fact. Maddox's reasoning and attention to detail induced a lips agape for miles reaction in Paige, who couldn't risk blinking amidst the fascinating brainstorming session. Without taking anything away from his impressive logic, she wasn't there to admire the arguments, but to hear who the offender was. What matter of fact? The killer didn't come from outside. The intact locks, doors devoid of scratches, bars without bends. What does that mean? That means your father committed suicide? Or the killer was already inside the house and didn't gain entry from outside. The post-mortem report says it wasn't a suicide. No findings from the crime squad report suggest an entry. That implies? Your father, who was alive at 4 o'clock in the evening, was killed at 6. And whoever it was, they left the house after locking the front door. Who could that be? Paige started to stutter. Her voice was starved of clarity. If hiccups were a sign of mess-ups, then Paige needed a lot more than just water to cleanse herself. Just remembered, I said earlier that two important facts had surfaced. The first is that the killer did not break into the house. He already dwelled within. The second is that according to the case file from Detective Kevin, only one person left the house at 6 p.m., the approximate time when your father was murdered. Do you know who that is? Paige's hands were velcroed to her cheeks, which twitched under her eyes, which were at the mercy of a dark cloud of tears waiting to burst out. Maddox spoke as if the culprit had been found, but Paige couldn't understand if it was the answer or a question thrown at her. Sir, what are you trying to say? Poor killer, she, had she not closed the door after killing her father, somebody from the grocery store or a postman may have come by and discovered the dead body, and immediately blame would have fallen on the one who last left the house. She, therefore, locked the front door before going to the market, and it's that not so well thought out immature move that has revealed the killer. Do you understand who? Sir? You mean me? Hey, cut the act. This ain't no weekend acting class. Enact your fictitious role elsewhere. I won't buy your lame licking lies. Deputy Chief, your conclusion is wrong. I'm saddened by the demise of my father and have been eagerly waiting since last night to find who the culprit is. But you nonchalantly say to my face that I am that killer? I'm my father's killer? This is unfair. Unfair? Oh, really? Weren't you the only one around when your dad died? No other creature came in. No other creature but you went out. The killer doesn't have her origin outside. She comfortably dwelled inside. Who is that? Come on, answer the riddle, please. Sir, what about those 4 rogues who chased me? Why did they do that? What if they decided to strike up a pointless conversation and then chase me to stretch out time so that somebody else could kill Dad meanwhile? If they hadn't chased you, it would have taken you at least 30 minutes to reach the market. You made it back home in only half the time because of the chase. They didn't stretch time but actually saved time. And also, yes? That street food vendor, had he seen the chase, would have told us that right after you entered the house and closed the door, the goons walked away by swinging their hands like going for an exercise. That is true, because they didn't attempt to knock down the door, which would have been too easy for 4 meat mountains. It proves? You hired them yourself. Sir, no! This isn't true. It's a freaking lie. I didn't hire any gang of rowdies. Please believe me. Why should I go after arranging goons to chase myself? Why should you? So that it will appear that your family is in danger from some unknown assailant and you can disappear from cops' gaze. What? Is the logic perfect? She immediately stood up and sat down on the ground in the corner of the room. She got called a liar for sitting on the chair, a murderer for ignoring the water bottle, a person in cahoots with scoundrels for emptying half of the water bottle. Perhaps the title of terrorist was in store for being seated for an hour. In the fear of getting labeled more brutally and unfairly, she waved farewell to the chair and sat on the floor. Who needs comfort? I'm fine with dirt, she mumbled. Miss Page, what we've seen so far is only half of things. There's another side to explore. Don't you want to? Come, sit down. How can I accept if you call someone who's mourning the death of her dad the one who killed her dad? I'm a teacher. A teacher who instructs children will never set a bad example. Why on earth should I kill my dad who raised me since the age of 4? That too by strangling. Enough, sir. Enough. It's fine if you don't find the killer, but don't lie in the name of sniffing out suspects. Done speaking. Shall we proceed to the next topic? Deputy Chief Maddox had seen his share of smoke bombs and gas grenades. If lethal weapons couldn't subdue his run, what chances did tears have? Bowing to the whims of words is a weakness of the mind. Becoming a slave to sheets of tears is a lack of strength. Seeking truth in the stutter of a suspect is real focus. No, sir, I'm not done speaking. If you can unfairly point fingers at me, don't I get to place my side of the argument on the table? I'm not halting you from speaking. It's your guilt that's shutting you up. Let's do as you say, since you sound loud and promising. What are you going to say? It was Page's chance to crumble his accusation into crumbs and lumps. Maddox, on the other hand, being confident in his reasoning, didn't believe he had a reason to lend an ear to what she had to say. Sir, I'm a teacher. A math teacher, not a vagabond. How can I organize assassins? Your Uncle Vance. Even he can organize a party of not 4 but 40 assassins. Sadly, he's broke, but you aren't. Following him for 24 hours is all it takes to learn the ins and outs of hiring gangs of goons. Deal over. If you wished, you could have had the same gang kill your father, but hiring to kill isn't cheap. Murder is no mystery novel. You weren't left with much choice but to take up the killing duty in your own hands. Maybe you personally wanted the duty. First, I wasn't inclined to believe there was even a chase, until Detective Kevin showed pics of tracks on the ground heading from east to west. This was well planned and executed. I'm a self-respecting person. I don't negotiate with nasty, bloodthirsty goons. Ew! If a squirrel can take on a snake to save its babies, a girl can't strike up a deal with rogues to kill her father? I hear a yes from a group of invisible sane minds. But after meeting Max on my way to the market and seeing him run in my house's direction, I sent Dad a message. You sent him a message to stay careful and not open the door. Did he reply? Nope, it was a fake message following a fierce murder. Enough with the small talk that's going nowhere. Shall we proceed to the next topic? Paige hugged herself tightly with her hands and shivered in expectation of what the next topic was and what was going to be said in relation to it. The maiden half of the inquiry takes us to the second, which starts with a particular name. Steve. Is this name familiar to you? Steve. Take your time. Please think and answer. Can I go for a walk meanwhile? Of course, I know. He was my college mate. That's it? Your college mate? There ends the matter? Isn't he your boyfriend too? Yes. Are you like an old tape recorder that plays only after tapping the button twice? Whatever. Are you aware of the news of Steve's death? I read in the paper. Phew. You've been informed. Let me come to the matter. Where did he pass away? Willowbury. When did he pass away? Tuesday. Where were you on that particular day? Out of town for a teachers' conference. Which place exactly was it? Please tell me, ma'am. Willowbury. The conference was held in Willowbury. Yes, you were in the exact same town as Steve when he died. Did you see him on Tuesday? No, sir. Why? He hadn't called me for 2 days. Out of anger, I chose to not meet him. Lovely. That's how you must answer. Saying that you met him would shift the blame-hungry fingers towards you. Saying you didn't see him despite seeing him is the way to say you did see him. Okay, conference was over on Monday. Why did you stay in Willowbury till Tuesday? My school messed up my ticket and I couldn't board the plane on Monday. Bravo! Bravo! A lie for every question ready for dispatch. Do you sit at home and cook half-baked lies? Isn't punctuality the pinnacle of your personality? In spite of your conference concluding on Monday, you found an excuse or two to stay put till Tuesday and for sure met Steve during the stay. The meeting was what the stay was for anyway. How many combinations of lies do you harbor to hide this obvious fact? Lying is not an appalling behavior from a person who deals with snakes. Deals with snakes? Deputy Chief, what are you hinting at? Steve died of a snake bite. That's what the paper says. Do you know what your friend and co-worker, Miss Sarah, said about you? Paige was suffocated by shock and surprise in equal ounces. Sarah was her best friend, the closest she had in the name of a sibling. She wanted to pry her head off and kick it and herself to a grave, wondering how someone as trustworthy as Sarah could have informed misleading information about her. Sarah is like my own sister. She has known me well for several years. I can bet my bottom dollar she did not spread lies about me. Worry not, she only spoke in praise of you. Wanna hear? Paige is my best friend. She has done loads of favors for me. She even goes out of her way and places the orders for biological specimens on my behalf. Detective Kevin asked, from where? Sarah answered, from Specimens for Biological Studies, SBS. We came to know after calling the institution that every kind of bugger from frogs and lizards to snakes and starfish were available there. It turns out acquiring snakes wasn't so hard for you after all. Tears were Paige's only shield against the array of questions that Deputy Chief Maddox launched at her hearing organs. One can uproot the tree of suspicion and its branching questions if answers are in their hands. Otherwise, the massive tree's cozy shade becomes a flaming penance. As he dedicated the guilt of both deaths to the shoulders of Paige, she begged and bawled her eyes out to say she was innocent. Maddox lost his patience. He was on the edge of exploding like a volcano if answers didn't start erupting. Sir, I've accepted the feeling that you're not going to listen to me. I came here to know the identity of the killer, not change your preconceived notions. Mother, father, boyfriend, I've lost them all, and standing before you all alone, desolate and forlorn, and you shout at my face without a spoon of tenderness that I'm the murderer? You were stationed at Willowbree when Steve died on Tuesday. You were home when your father passed away. Max, Vance, and those four goons were nowhere near the spot. The only person common to both deaths, present in the spots of both deaths, the person pointed by the evidence, the person linked to the props involved is you. You! Yes, sir, my father died and I killed him. My boyfriend died and I killed him too. My mother died when I was a child, and why don't you go ahead with your merciless, spiteful tongue and say I killed her as well? You were a 4-year-old infant when your mother passed away. How could I place a spiteful blame on someone? Please rethink your stance, ma'am. Then the rest of your accusations are acceptable peace treaties? Deputy Chief, a murder has behind it a murderer, and behind the murderer stands a motive. Both are essential. It's easy to put the blame on me, but not so easy to answer why I would kill my dearest and nearest father who raised me for 18 freaking years since my mother's departure. Why would I kill my soulmate, my significant other, despite being the object of his affection? Answer me, sir. Door, lock, snake are all one part of the equation. In order for the other side to equalize, you need the motive. Where is the motive? Maddox listened to what she spoke and applauded her with slogans of appreciation. Bravo! He said and continuously clapped. Finding the link between the kill and the killer is necessary to nail down the killer behind the kill. A killer without an agenda can be a mindless serial killer, or mentally disabled, or innocent. Miss Page, Max has umpteen reasons to kill Steve. Isn't that common in cases of unrequited love? He could have thought I'd start liking him if Steve was eliminated from the picture. Vance has reasons to kill Dad. He often rejected his requests and never stopped insulting him and calling him names, so it could have been drunken anger. Without any reason or drive, why the hell should I kill my spotless father and most adorable Steve? I'm supposed to be in Willowbree now to mourn my boyfriend, but I'm busy being accused for his death. Check our phones to see if there were quarrels. You won't find a damn single instance. Talk to me, sir. Talk to me. What is the motive? Maddox smiled and said, You're supposed to tell me that. Will you?